And there is an indelible connection between joyfulness and generosity. I would say to live generously is simply to live in accordance with the deepest heart of reality. Because I believe that the very ground of our being, our Creator God, is the most glad-hearted, joyful being in all of existence and is a generous God. I mean, I believe we exist because of the overflow of who He is.
Yeah.
And so we then are called to bear that image, to be a joyful and generous people.
Hey, welcome to Wealth Beyond Riches. Thank you so much for watching this part of the Streamline Financial channel. As you know, this show is to go one layer deeper in the conversation around work and around money. And today, deep is the word. As we sit down with my friend Heath Hardesty, he's an author, a speaker, a pastor, an entrepreneur, and he started a coffee shop that's connected to his church called Inklings Coffee and Tea. You've got to check it out if you're in the Silicon Valley area. But Heath is a man of great depth, poetry, wisdom, and we talk about what it means to be fully human. And if you're not sure what that even means, then keep listening. It's a great conversation. We hit what it looks like to live generously. What are the benefits of living a generous life? Also, how do we deal with being disinformed, disengaged, disembodied people? All of that sounds pretty theoretical, but it's incredible. And Heath is one of my great, great friends. He's got a new book coming out on October 14th called All Things Together. I've got a copy right here. I've got a couple copies to give away as well. If you leave a review on either Apple or Spotify, jump over to those audio places and then send an email to hello@streamlineplanning.com with your name. We're going to pick two winners, just two winners, and they're going to get two copies. They're going to get a copy each in the mail. So thank you so much for listening. Again, be sure to subscribe. This is going to be good. The first thing that I always love to talk with people about, a lot of the people listening are in the middle of a career, or maybe they're near the end of the career or something like that. And while you are a author and pastor and leader and speaker and husband and father, you didn't start out that way. So why don't we go to the origins of Heath's working career and where that started out? Yeah, where did you start out and how did you get to where you're at, like right now?
Yes, yeah, definitely didn't start out as a pastor. So I grew up in a blue-collar home. My father was a master plumber, and so I grew up around the trade. You know, as I grew up, summers, I would help out, whether it was small irrigation jobs or just helping him go do something somewhere. And then after college, I went to University of Colorado in Boulder, studied literature and religious studies. After that, I was working at a bookstore because I'm a book guy, and I was also doing the music thing, you know, playing music in clubs and bars and theaters and all those things. But I ended up becoming my father's apprentice, so I jumped into the trade. Turns out there was a better paycheck doing that, so I could actually support my wife and I. So,
You mean compared to playing in bars and stuff like that? It was better to do plumbing?
Yeah, you got a way better paycheck being a plumber than playing to 10 people at midnight somewhere down in Denver, Colorado. And so I jumped into the trade there, became my father's official apprentice, and did that for a number of years. You know, honestly, I did it begrudgingly. I was not happy about it. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I never wanted to take on the family business mantle like that. But God used it in really powerful ways. It taught me a lot about it, and I actually look back on those years with great gratitude. So yeah, I did that for a number of years. Somewhere in the middle of that, I went through an existential crisis. I grew up in a Christian home, but it was at that point in life where I'm like, is this really what I believe? Is this really true? Because at that point, it was information. It was data in my head. It didn't shape who I was and the way I was living. And so through that existential crisis, through reading a couple books of the Bible, Romans, Genesis, John, that's when I believe I really became a follower of Jesus in April 2007, which opened up all sorts of doors after that. I had a mentor, a guy named Tom Hovestall, Pastor Tom, one of my best friends, who we'd talk for hours every Friday just about life and plumbing and the sad poetry I was writing and all the things. And so he was a great mentor. But doors started opening up. I got involved with Chuck Colson in Washington, D.C., theology program, started preaching, speaking, doing different things. And long story short, an opportunity opened up here in the East Bay area of California to partner with the church, to be a part of the church staff here at Valley Community Church, to plant a church community to reach the 20s and 30s here out on the northern side of Silicon Valley. We moved out here in 2009, and so we've been out here ever since.
Wow.
So yeah, and then about 5 years after that, the community that I led and the larger church community, the mother church, we merged, and then I became the lead pastor over that integrated community. And it's been a wild and a wonderful ride, and I love what I get to do. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, you're definitely, so I think you're the first pastor ever on the podcast. And for anybody listening, we do talk a lot about faith in here, only because for me personally and the people I'm learning from, that's who comes on the show, if you will. A lot of them have a faith similar to mine, which is the Christian faith. And it's integral to everything for me, whether it's leadership, work, money, it all integrates in. So maybe you'll stop listening after this because I brought a pastor on. Also, he's the first plumber that I've ever had.
There you go.
On the
What an
show.
honor.
So talk to me, tell me again, there was a faith switch for you when you said, hey, this was my kind of my family's heritage, and then it became something personal for you. What age was that, and what do you think brought you to that point?
That's a really good question, Tim. Yeah, so I grew up in what you call a Christian home with my parents, believers, and we would go to church. I went to a number of different churches. In short, I learned how to be a good moral person, and I kind of say that in a negative way. I knew how to play the game, what not to do, what to do. I wanted to be seen as good. So I would say that I lived by a very moralistic view. Like I tried to earn that. I tried to look good, right? So I tried to look good. So I played the game. And then in college, you come up against all sorts of difficulties, and you're trying to figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And then as I entered into apprenticeship, with my father, I'm like, well, how did I get here? What's going on with my life? And do I really believe all this stuff?
Yeah.
So that sent me on a learning journey. I believe the Christian faith is intellectually credible as well as existentially satisfying. It reaches the head and the heart. And so I was reading everything I could, just devouring. I'd be on the plumbing truck, just devouring books in between jobs. I had this little Bible that I'd take in my back pocket when I was in crawl spaces and waiting for something, for the water to go back on. I'd be reading the Bible. So I was
that the one covered in like duct tape, you said, held together?
Yeah, totally. That's that one.
I love it.
Yeah. So I was just on this journey and just praying, Lord, show me who you are. And then ultimately, when I was 27, at the end of April of 2007, I just had a powerful experience of, in short, I'd say there was a move from knowing about who this God was to actually experiencing his grace and goodness and going, oh my goodness, I need someone to save me. I need you. And the Bible became three-dimensional, and this Jesus became lovely. And so then that started a whole journey of learning about who he is and walking down that road.
Yeah. Oh, that's super cool. I was just talking to somebody yesterday, actually a student that I've been mentoring who's going off to college like tomorrow. And it's funny, some of the stuff you just said, we had the same conversation. Because I just asked him, I was like, hey, so you go off to Ohio State, you go do this, you go do that. What if this plan falls through? What if that plan fails? What if you hit a wall here? What if you get to the end of yourself? You've made some bad choices. Like, what are you turning to next? And he talked about a faith. And I was like, well, faith in what? And he was like, well, I think in myself, like that everything will work out. And he had very parallel responses of like, I don't know if I believe in God. A lot of my friends do. And I think I'm kind of stubborn about it maybe because I haven't seen it for myself yet. And I need to figure it out for myself. And I think a lot of us, any of us go through that where it's like faith is super personal and it doesn't have to be private. It can be public, right, which is why we're talking about it. And so just cool to hear your story of how that became yours. I want to read you wrote a book, and we're going to talk about it a little bit today. For anybody listening, I'm holding it up on video. It's called All Things Together. It's incredible. Full disclosure, I'm only 2/3 of the way through it. You can see my bookmark there, but it's masterful. I just want to read this part. You're apprenticing your dad, so let me ask you this. You will say in the book, today, the master plumber. You didn't say dad. Why did you choose that?
At which point, what do you mean? Why did I say?
I feel like you always referred to him as the master plumber
Yeah.
instead of dad. And I was just, as I was reading that, I was like, oh man, I'm super curious. Like that, I know that was intentional.
Yeah. So obviously I make the connection that it's my dad early on with the story. I wanted to show that the master-apprentice relationship. And then every once in a while just reweave it into the intimate relationship of father and son, because it's not just this business transaction or skill transaction. So I wanted to refer to the apprentice-master relationship. And because one of the pieces of the book, or the heart of the book, is this paradigm. Like, apprenticeship starts with union. It always begins with relationship. There's no apprenticeship without relationship. It's inherently relational, and it's out of that relationship that we get to abide with that other. We get to abide with the master and learn from them, watch them, enjoy them, delight in them, and then we obey. We do the things that the master teaches us to do. For me, that was turning the wrench or soldering the copper. And then over time, right, we become like them. We image the master. So union leads to abiding and obeying. And that is a process of then learning or growing and imaging that master. So yeah, over time, as I spent time with the master plumber, who was also my father, became to look more and more like my father and do things the way that he did. So, because apprenticeship, it's a well-known term, but sometimes within the church world, so why not use the word disciple, right? And so I try to put the word apprentice in there often to show that it's an embodied reality. It's not just like we're thinking about some stuff and go, oh, okay, I have some new knowledge in my head, but it's a relationship that changes how you operate in the world. So it's a fully embodied faith. So yeah, I just tried to get that understanding of master and apprentice in there as much as I could.
Yeah, I love it. And it gives it, the focus then isn't on your dad then. I feel like it is on that master-apprentice relationship, which is super cool.
And I'm always trying to have that operate at two levels, right? Yeah. Because those illustrations are meant to show a greater reality. That apprenticeship isn't just about plumbing or being a carpenter or a painter, but it's actually showing us a greater reality of what does it mean to be human in this world. According to the Christian faith, which I believe, we're made in the image of God, and we're made to bear his image in this world and to carry forth that spiritual DNA, so to speak, to look like him and to act like him, to live and love well in this world. He's a God of love. And so that's a process of spiritual formation. We are beings with like neuroplasticity, right? Neuroplastic minds and wooable hearts. We can be changed and our desires and our affections shift. So we undergo a process of formation, spiritual formation. And that's baked into reality. So apprenticeship isn't just something that was invented, by the rabbis of Jesus's time. It wasn't invented, by the Greeks and all of their artisans. It's actually just a way of understanding or articulating what does it mean to be human and to be either formed into the likeness of your creator or to be dehumanized or deformed towards something broken and not the way we are intended to be. Yeah.
For anybody listening, as you can tell, this is not going to be 3 steps towards blah, blah, blah. We're going to go a couple layers deep because that's who Heath is, and that's why I love this conversation. Heath, you talk about early on in the book being wonder blind. Talk about that. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, again, this goes to some of my theology, but also my experience. Like for so long, I walked through the world just, assuming that I deserve all this, and it just normalized to it all. But when you really step back and think about it, you're like, this world is amazing. It's loaded with treasures. The fact that I have the gift of breath in my lungs this morning, the fact that Marlo's my wife and we have these kids, I mean, it's all gift, And
how many kids do you guys have again?
So we have 5 children. Haven Silas, Hadley, Olivia, and Ruby. Haven passed shortly after he was born many years ago, but the other four are with us, and our house is loud and wonderful
Yeah.
and full of the joy and wonder of kids. Like
Yeah.
they see something that we think is just normal or banal, and they're like, do it again. That's incredible.
Yeah.
To have that childlike faith and wonder is fantastic. So there's way more going on around us than we're aware of. And I think what happens is our sense of beauty and our sense of goodness and truth gets dulled over time by pain, by suffering, by what would I call, sin, what the Bible calls sin. And so we don't get to see things as they truly are. Our eyes get clouded. And so I think one of the beautiful things about being, again, my faith here, follower of Jesus, and seeing reality as he's made it, is it brightens up again. It doesn't mean that there aren't dark things or hard things or suffering. This isn't like a cheesy way of seeing the world and it's all perfect. But the brights are brighter and the darks are darker because, there's a way this world was designed, and it was designed for goodness, beauty, and truth, what are called the transcendentals. And he helps bring those pieces back together so we can engage the world that way, fully awake and fully alive.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was just having breakfast with a dear friend this morning, and he was talking about just the wonder of like where we are right now in life. We were talking about, we have kids who are going to college in the next year or two. And so we're talking about kids going to school and what that's going to be like and how we're trying to guide them and give them principles to navigate that huge decision. And he's, man, to think about where I am right now in a leadership position at this company who's owned by private equity, and there's a merger, and managing these people and navigating all these decisions. And he's like, college for me was like, I was a graphic design major focusing on typography and smoking a lot of cigarettes. And now I'm here. Like, how amazing that can turn into this. And there's a huge journey along the way, but I love that line of being wonder blind, because we do miss so much when we're shuffling along, face to the ground, not, as Eugene Peterson put it, not looking up to like where the action is. And that's just incredible. Talk for a second about, so the book All Things Together, it says how to apprentice Jesus is the way of flourishing in a fragmented world. Talk about the problem for a second. Like, the world's fragmented. You talk about us experiencing disintegration. Some of those fancy words I think I'm grasping, but break it down for me a bit. Like, what's the problem that you're addressing? And for even someone who's, I don't know about this Jesus guy,
right,
what are the issues that you're seeing, especially in your position of caring and loving and leading people?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're referring to a number of those dis words, right?
Yeah.
Disenchanted. So I say that we live in a disintegrated age. So to be integrated obviously means all the pieces come together in a beneficial and beautiful way for flourishing.
Yeah.
But we're disintegrated. And I give a list of 6 of those. I can chat about a couple of them, but essentially the way it starts is that we live in a disenchanted age. And what that means is it's basically saying that there's a fundamental relationship that's broken. There's a rift in us, and that's with our Creator, that we have rejected Him, that there's a separation between us and the source of everything that's good and beautiful and true. That's God. And so we've broken apart. And so then we end up seeing the world as just the stuff, the cause and effect, and the wood of this table and the atoms and particles in this room, and it becomes disenchanted. Like the wonder of the supernatural that we're meant for more is taken out of it. So that's problematic. And then we're dissociated, which is a psychological term, but basically it means like there's a fracture or there's a break within ourselves. Because if it is true, as a Christian worldview and faith says, that God has made us to be His image bearers and to live well and to love well in this world, but if we've broken that disconnection from Him, well, how can we live into our purpose? How can we be who we're meant to be if that relationship is broken? So then we become even uncomfortable in our own skin.
Yeah.
And the anthropology question, who are we? What are we for? I don't know. Maybe I'm this. Maybe I'm that. I'll try to, work myself to the bone and get the biggest homes and get the biggest cars, but then still find that I'm empty. Now what do I do? So we're dissociated within ourselves. We don't even know who we are, what we're here for. we live in a discontextualized age. We live in a digital age where we're scrolling all the time. And and on that scroll feed, you'll go from advertisements for Nikes all the way to some kind of a medication, to seeing blood and concrete and dust in Lebanon or Gaza, to a friend's picture of them eating some food in a restaurant or in Disneyland. And it's all dislocated or discontextualized. And that doesn't just mean it's out of order. It means like things that shouldn't go together are put right next to each other. Yeah. So in plumbing terms, that's called cross connection. You don't want gray water and white water. Like, you don't want those sewage pipes connected to your fresh water. But we live with that kind of digital intake. So, and we're dislocated because we often live just so digitally. We'll know more about what's going halfway across the world than we know about what's going on in our local council, our city council or our schools. And so we've become unrooted in the place that we live, asynchronous. We're not like connected with the life around us. So there's a number of these disintegrations that pull us apart. And I think one of the best illustrations is, imagine you're driving, on the highway, and a massive rock comes through your windshield. Like, you got a problem, right? What's the problem? Was a huge hole in your windshield. And so the integrity of that windshield is compromised and you're speeding along. But it's not just that hole. What happens? Well, you have fractures that start to spiral out from that hole. And that spiraling of those fractures and the multiplying of them then clouds the entirety of the windshield. And the more you drive along and the more those fractures go, the more it's compromised and the more something worse is going to happen. And so that's us. That big hole in the windshield is that fundamental break of who we are with our Creator. And because we don't live within that, then suddenly all these other fractures start to happen, and we try to put Band-Aids on those cracks and fractures. But what needs to happen is a reconstitution of that windshield. Yeah.
That's so good, man. That's so good. Props to you. I had to write down the different D words, but you hit them. You talked about one of the solutions, not to jump like straight to like solutions, but I think for anybody listening, they're like, yeah, I know, I can feel what you're talking about, Heath. Like, I can feel the I'm going to read it, the dislocation, the disembodiment, the disconnectedness. One of the ways you talk about being, I'll just read this. You said, in this age, it's probably weird for you to hear your own book being read. I'll do it for Audible, by the way. It says, in this age of disintegration, we need a coherent story that trains us in making sense of the strangeness and brilliance of the human experience. The patchwork narratives we have cobbled together about our humanity simply cannot bear the weight of our existence. And then you refer to Humpty Dumpty later on. Some of these references, man, are incredible. You go from Macbeth to C.S. Lewis over to Jurassic Park and Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Just, I was always intrigued, and I love the footnotes, by the way. You said at the very beginning, footnotes don't have to be mind-numbing. I'm of the opinion they can be side trails of wonder and extra slants of light for the journey. And it's true, man. I was like, whoa, where is that from? What is that about?
Good.
So talk for a second about needing to understand the story we're in. What do you mean by that?
Well, we all live by some story, whether we're conscious of it or not. We have to find a way to make sense of the world. And so when you look at someone's actions, they're going to be tied back to the way they perceive the world. And there's a reason why we're story-shaped beings. We love stories. We're drawn to stories. I can, on any given sermon, I can give 2 or 3 stories in it, and then I could list a ton of the coolest data in the world. And come Monday morning, all that data, all the abstractions, they vaporize for most people. But years later, somebody can say, I remember that story when. Because what stories do, they're integrators. They pull together. They connect with our imagination. So they pull together our desires, right? Our wills, our affection, our intellections, our memories, and they integrate things for us. And we are meant to live in a grand story.
Yeah.
We live in a story of a good and beautiful world where things have been broken and torn apart, but ultimately the good Creator is going to redeem and restore and regarden the world and bring to new flourishing what was once failing and falling apart. And so we need a story to understand our own lives. And so, but what is that story? And often what we do is we try to cobble together the little pieces. Like, I like this, I like that, I don't like this. And so we try to customize this little patchwork story, but because it's in pieces, we don't see the full picture of our humanity and how we're designed to live. And so we need a cohesive story that isn't of our own opinion, but is actually the truth about the world and who we are in the world and how we're to live in the world.
Talk at one point about imagination, and
Yeah.
it kind of debunked everything I thought about imagination. Like all I can think of is, hey, it's only your imagination. Go back to bed, or just use your imagination. Almost like as if imagination was like a bad thing or something false. But you actually commended the imagination. Where did that come from?
Yeah. So, yeah, often we see the imagination as just like the fiction faculty. It's like the stuff that comes up with unicorns and orcs, all the unreal things. And that's a function of it, absolutely, to come up with those stories, to come up with those fables and tales and things.
Yeah.
But what the imagination is the organ of integration. So C.S. Lewis talks about reason being the organ of meaning, how we understand meaning, but imagination being the organ of how things integrate and how it all works out. So when we look out at the world and we try to understand it, we're not just taking little bits of data. We also have a will, we have emotions, we have memories. How do all these streams flow into one cohesive understanding of reality? And that's what I'm calling the imagination. So you can have the imagination that creates things, comes up with fiction, but honestly, like all of that fiction is really meant to serve reality, right? The fiction of Winnie the Pooh or the Humpty Dumpty or Lord of the Rings or Narnia, all of those, or Melville's Moby Dick, all of those stories are meant to serve reality, to help us to understand who we are, what is our place in this world, and what does it mean to be human. So the imagination is not meant to take us away from reality. It's the way that we are to understand reality and see all the pieces weaved together.
Oh, that's so good. To commend the power of story, I was working in the garage, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and I've been reading through your book. The back of it got really wet at the pool, so it's pretty wrinkled. I threw it on the ground. I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And then I pick it up and it's like soaking wet. So it's dry now. But I'm working in the garage, and as I'm grabbing a wrench or something like that, I'm like, I put it on the ground and it like blended into the concrete. And I was like, oh, maybe I could spray paint it orange. And then I wouldn't leave it behind. And that, you talked about a story where it's like, yeah, my dad would spray paint all his tools orange. It's just a plumber's trick for not leaving stuff behind.
Yeah.
And I had a picture in my head of an orange like crescent wrench as I'm sitting there, I don't know, working on something. And it sticks with you. And that story had nothing to do with me, but it created meaning for me in something simple, but it gave me a picture of a different way to do something, or of how to use creativity to be resourceful.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm glad I could help you not lose your tools.
Yeah, I haven't done it yet, to be clear.
Okay.
But, oh, man. So we live in a fragmented world. We have a fragmented story. We have disintegrated lives. As you lead people and care for people and love people in what you do, what are some things you think we need to better understand as people in order to reintegrate? Like, what are the things that as you're an apprentice to Jesus, even if you're not a fan of Jesus, what does that mean? What's it look like? What are some things we can do, I guess?
Yeah, so to kind of harken back to something I said earlier, Jesus isn't just data for us, but there's a real relationship there that we're connected to him because of what he's done. And I won't go into all the theology of it, but that he gives us his spirit and we become truly alive, connected with him. And that means we get to have a relationship. That's the abiding part. So the union with him, just like I had a union with my father as the master plumber. Now my days were spent on the plumbing truck in the crawl space. Well, now our days are spent connected with this Jesus, talking with him, walking with him, and then obeying what he says, and for me as a plumber, again, the obeying was like, no, solder the copper pipe this way or fix the valve this way. But with Jesus, it's, well, live this way, to live a life of forgiveness, a life of humility, a life saturated in the narrative of the scriptures, understanding who this God is and walking like him. So what I would say is that there's the paradigm, which is kind of abstract, the union, abiding, all that stuff. should lead to the real practical daily walk, the practices. What are we practicing? What are the habits of our life that are actually shaping us and actually forming us? So what is that master story that you're taking in, that's shaping you? And that's where the scripture meditation practice comes in. The practice of unceasing prayer, talking with this God, speaking first and most to him about everything. It doesn't have to be this cold, mechanical, like with a bunch of these and thous. Like it's an open conversation that he's started, and we get to talk with the creator of the universe, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Life together is another one that we're not on this journey alone. It's not meant to be solo. We're relational beings, and we need one another. You draw things out of me, Tim, that other friends don't, and other friends draw things out of me that other friends don't. And so we need one another to become the people that we were created to be.
Yeah.
And then I go through a number of other practices on how we are changed or shaped into Christ likeness. And one of those is unhurried presence, like stopping, slowing down, becoming aware of the beauty and the goodness around us, being present to God's presence with us. And then ultimately, one of them is a joyful generosity, which you and I have talked about. And how do we use the resources that God has given us to be a blessing to others and then to show his love?
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's a great summary of different things. I want to ask about all of them, but we don't have time. We did each week here at Streamline, we do a time of Lectio Divina, which is Latin. If you're into ancient languages, you'll love Heath's book. Latin, Greek, Hebrew, he hits them all. But we do that time of like sacred reading, and it's what you said. I wanted to give the team permission in the middle of the work day, the work week, to slow down, and it's totally optional. So no HR violations, but to spend 30 minutes of completely unhurried. We meet in the room that I'm in right now, kind of dim the lights, throw on some ambient music, read through a couple pieces of scripture that are reflective and meditative. And I got to walk through the 7 R's. We've been practicing it for months, and it was awesome to have a framework for, hey, here's the things that we're doing. And we probably didn't hit R's 5, 6, and 7 really well, as far as like resting, returning, and repeating to some of the stuff that we meditate on and just spend time with our souls slowing down. So thank you for that. That was hugely helpful for us. You talked about joyful generosity. That is a chapter I've not gotten to yet. But before we jump into it, though, I always love to ask people, like, well, number one, for anybody listening, we're going to talk about generosity, which is like the regular practice of giving something without expecting something in return. And that may seem like something for only certain kinds of people, like only people who have made it, or only people who have this much money, and you know what? I don't think that's true. And I don't think we talk about it enough, because it is a practice. It's not a dollar amount. It's a mindset. It's not a transaction. And so just as we jump into this, I just want to add that caveat that everybody, I believe, is on some journey to either live more generously or less. It could be with our time, with our resources, with our money. But I love to learn from people who are doing it well and ask them questions about it, because Heath he's not going to post a video online and be like, guys, I'm really generous, and here's how to get there. And here's the 3 steps to be more like me, who's really, because generous people are also humble. So Heath, all that caveat so that you feel comfortable sharing your story. What has you learned to become a more generous person? And again, that could be multiple facets of life. The friend I was having breakfast with this morning, he's turning 50 in a little bit, and I want 50 to 60 to be marked by this unhurried, I have time for people, for people that when they bring the Costco cake to his retirement party, to go, you know what? He had time for me. And that there's a generosity of time there. As you look back on your story, who modeled that generosity for you? Who were some of your heroes where you're like, man, as I look back, that person really modeled that for me, and I saw it, and that allowed me to take my own steps towards being more generous?
Yeah. Well, first, Tim, I love how you included like time and attention in there, not just, our finances. I would say my friend and mentor, Pastor Tom, he was incredibly generous. Every Friday for so long, I would just get off the plumbing truck and go, and I would sit in his office and we would talk. And now being a pastor, like that was sacrificial of his time and his attention, because I know he had a lot of people who wanted to see him, and he had a lot of things to do. So he really modeled that generosity, and he modeled it with his time, his attention, and he also modeled and helped me connect glad-heartedness and joyfulness to generosity. It wasn't this begrudging thing. Like, it wasn't like, okay, let's spend some time together. There was a mirth, there was a joy, there was a warmth there. And there is an indelible connection between joyfulness and generosity. And can I just give a little bit of my understanding of generosity then?
Let's do it. Let's nerd out. I'm ready.
Yeah, I would say to live generously is simply to live in accordance with the deepest heart of reality. Because I believe that the very ground of our being, our Creator God, is the most glad-hearted, joyful being in all of existence, and is a generous God. I mean, I believe we exist because of the overflow of who He is.
Yeah.
And so we then are called to bear that image, to be a joyful and generous people. You know how it is when you come across something that gives you great delight and great joy, whether it's like a new song or a new book, and you like call your friend and you're like, you got to listen to the song. Have you checked it out? Or have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
Why? Because it's touched something in you, and there's a joy. And what happens? Joy is centrifugal. It needs to go outwards to others, right? And that's how God is. He shares who He is with others, and we are to share the goodness in our lives with others. And there's a proverb in the Bible. It's Proverbs 22:9, and it says, whoever has a bountiful eye will be blessed, for he will share his bread with the poor. And I love that, because it says whoever has a bountiful eye. That the word bountiful, it's a Hebrew word, tov. It often means good or beautiful. But whoever has a bountiful eye will be blessed, for he shall share his bread with the poor. In other words, whoever sees reality in this bountiful way, in this way of abundance, he will be blessed, because he'll be living in accordance with that deep heart of reality, that there's this good giver who gives all things gladly, and then therefore he will share with the poor. And if you go back to Stephen Covey, we'll go to Stephen Covey and Leadership Principles, from the mid-'80s book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He talks about the scarcity mindset and the abundance mindset, which I'm sure you've chatted about a lot on this show. And basically what he says is, there's two ways to see the world. There's the abundance mindset that says this isn't a zero-sum game. This isn't, just this finite pie, that we have to work these pieces around, but there's enough to go around so we can collaborate. And that can lead to flourishing for us. The scarcity mindset is the flip of that, and says, no, this is a zero-sum game. Yeah. And so the more the pie you get, the less of the pie I get. So now we're competing, and now we're in competition versus working together to cultivate a more flourishing. And so Jesus beat Covey to the punch by 2,000 years. Yeah. There's this point where Jesus, in his awesome Jesus-y way, he's like, hey, you guys see the birds? Look at them. They're doing gymnastics in the air. They're well-fed. They're having a good day. And look at the lilies on these Galilean fields. Like, they're well-dressed. Don't you know that the Father loves you more than them, and He will provide what is needed? That's abundance mindset, Jesus. So Pastor Tom helped me see the joyful generosity principle. Jesus ultimately showed me the joyful generosity principle. And that's what we're called to live into, is to gladly give to others what I believe God has gladly given to us.
Yeah, that's incredible. Heath, what would you say? This is just hitting me. You're sitting down with a person. Maybe they're coming into your office at 4 p.m. on Friday, every day, every week. Oh, man. Pastor Tom, way to go. What a sacrifice. That's cool. And the person says, hey, I don't see God as loving and generous and caring. Is this generosity thing still for me? What would you say? Yeah, I know we don't plan a lot of these questions, guys. Yeah. Just if you're listening, this is on the fly, learning from a friend. Yeah, what do you think?
Well, first, I would say, just as lovingly and kindly as could say, is, well, just honestly, just because we don't see something or experience something one way doesn't mean it isn't that way. I would also say too that the generosity principle of the fact that there is a joyful, generous God who calls us to live with that same DNA. If that's baked into reality, if you live that way, you do experience a number of blessings, even if you don't go, oh, Jesus is my Lord and my Savior.
Yeah.
I think most of your listeners will have experienced this to some degree, where you operate out of a place, a posture of generosity, not like I give because I have to. Man, I want to give to this person what somebody gave me. And you do that. And at the risk of sounding really cheesy, it's like you feel something beautiful and good inside. You're like, wow, that actually feels good. Well, there's a reason. There's a reason that feels good. It's because you are living in accordance with your design. That bone is in socket. You're being a conduit, a channel of something wonderful to somebody else versus living upside down and self-centric and being grabby and holding on and going, me first, forget about you. So you're living in accordance with the law of the way God has designed the world. So it's just like when a bone's in socket, like it feels good whether you're a Christian or not.
Yeah.
Right. So I would say, that generosity thing is absolutely 100% for everybody. We are designed to live in community and to be a blessing to others.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of like how we have a river walk that runs through our downtown area, and I go down there sometimes. I love being by rivers because it's like alive, it's in motion.
Yeah.
There's so much there. And if you've ever been by a river and you see this like kind of side offshoot where some of the water ends up and then just kind of hangs out and doesn't go anywhere, and it's this stagnant green, kind of dead, and they're right next to each other is the crazy part. And you look at it and you're like, man, I want to be in that thriving, living, moving, breathing thing. I don't want to have that scarcity mindset where I'm just this pool just collecting water and bacteria and filth, and it's gross. Like you should come check it out. It's pretty nasty. But as I was looking at that one time, I was like, that is a life of abundance, of going, you know what, downstream from this river, there's so much life that's going to happen. And upstream, there was stuff that, whether it was glacier melt, depending on where you're at, like something provided this water flow, and it started somewhere and has a source. And guess what? It's going to keep coming.
Oh,
so
Tim, I love that. That's such a good image. And that little side eddy that's stagnant, that's Ebenezer Scrooge. There's a reason Charles Dickens portrayed Ebenezer Scrooge as someone like bound to death, shackled, miserable, alone. And there's a reason why on his Christmas conversion, Freudian slip there, on his Christmas conversion, what is he now? He's a man of laughter. He's a man of go get the feast, bring it to the Cratchits, and he's dancing. Why? Because he's in that flow. He's not in that side eddy of self. Right? He is living in that flow of being truly human, seeking to bless others and not having self at center, but the other people at the center.
Yeah. It's so good. When you talk about the Christmas Carol, I only picture Michael Caine from Muppets Christmas Carol.
Oh, yeah.
That's like the only version that comes to mind for me.
One of the best.
It's so good. I didn't realize until after watching it multiple years in a row, like probably 20, and then went to see the Christmas Carol production, that I was like, oh my gosh, if it's not Gonzo or Rizzo talking, it's 100% Dickens. Like, it's verbatim the story outside of the songs, and there's the one slow song that Disney cut. Thank you, Disney, for cutting that. But it's verbatim the story. Anyways, that's a favorite of mine.
That's awesome. I'm glad we got the Muppets in here today.
We did check. Who knew? Box checked. Heath, as you think about you and Marla and your family and your own journey of generosity, what are you guys loving to give to right now? Or how do you guys practice that as a family? Or what's one way you're growing in that? Give us a sneak peek into what that looks like for you guys.
So obviously, given that I'm a pastor and my faith is in Christ, we give to the kingdom. We give to the local church. We believe that's a powerful, wonderful thing, And by the way, when you think about giving the local church, you think, oh, tithe, 10%. Which is great, but I'd say low-hanging fruit, because it goes way above and beyond that. If you want to get real technical with it and go back to Old Testament, it was like 23.3% with all the things, come on. And what I would call grace giving is it's something that you're going to feel, right? It's not just the bare minimum, but that's interesting. There is this paradoxical connection between joy, generosity, but also sacrifice and costliness, right? C.S. Lewis, when he's talking about charity or giving, he says, you should feel the pinch of it. There should be some sting to it because self is dying in that, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, I don't want to get off into tithing and all of that, but
I love that. Well, you think about, I don't know, talking to your kids about when you ask them to do something and they're like, and you go, guys, anything that is worth doing is going to be hard. And how do we have fulfillment and satisfaction without some sort of pain or pinch or whatever it is? Those are the things that you look back on and you go, wow, I worked really hard for that. That feels good. So I'm with you. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I would say, the local church, but the kingdom of God is bigger than just the local church. There's all sorts of awesome opportunities to give. We partner with Compassion. Our church has been partnering with Compassion in Guatemala, setting up a center there and encouraging our church family to connect and to sponsor the children there. And that's been a really beautiful, fruitful venture. So that's one of the ways we do it. But there's all sorts of nonprofits as well. So, but aside from the financial, just, to go back to what you highlighted, time and attention to sit with someone and to not be rushed and say, hey, I'm here for you. So to make that space for those deep friendships or to connect with a neighbor or to be a listening ear to a stranger, to get involved when you could just walk by. Those are all actions of a generous heart. So I pray that my kids take those lessons deep into their bones and that generosity isn't I have to, but it's I get to kind of thing.
Yeah, it's so good. I always say when you give something away, you always receive something greater than what you gave away. And that's, by the way, to be clear, that's not a financial principle. It's what you talked about, the joy of seeing the recipient and the joy that they're getting, that becomes infectious joy for you of, oh my gosh, that's way more fun for you than it is for me. Whatever I gave away, whatever I gave up, I'm getting way more joy from seeing you enjoy it and seeing you, you have more wonder around this item than I do, or you have more joy around this experience than I do. Like that. That's super cool. The other day I got to take my oldest to go see Coldplay in concert. Like
nice.
Concert of a lifetime. And she was just having a blast. And it was hard. It was, man, she had to leave. She's coaching swimming. She had to leave a meet early. We had to drive 2.5 hours. We had to change in the car. Like, we had to get a rickshaw to get to the stadium. All these things that it costs money a lot. But you know what? Like, I do it again. I do it again tomorrow because of the experience, because of the time we got to spend together, because of that memory that you can't take from me at this point. So
that's awesome. I'm glad you got to go. So we'll have to talk Coldplay later and what your favorite songs are.
Yeah.
But one of the things that comes to mind with generosity is that it changes us.
Yeah.
It shapes us. And there's this incredible, well-known verse. Jesus says, where your treasure is, right? There your heart will be also. And for so long, I only saw one side of that coin because it's a coin with two precious sides. And one side is like where your treasure is, there your heart is. Oh, in other words, what you spend money on shows what you value. So you can say you value all these things, but what do the receipts say? What does the checkbook say? What do the statements say? So
what's a checkbook? I don't know.
I heard that from somebody. I don't even know. I'm just spouting that out. I never had one because I'm too young.
Yeah.
There's the whole old detective movie thing. It's follow the money trail and you'll find the culprit, right? So in other words, money can reveal the true state of your heart. That's how I always saw that verse. But there's another flip side of it. It's not just showing you your heart. It's shaping you your heart. So giving is a way of formation of how we shift and change. So I think that's important for us to see that money or giving and money, what we do with money, whether we're being greedy or generous, isn't just an echocardiogram, which is diagnostic, because that can't change your heart, an echocardiogram.
Yeah.
It just says, here's the shape, here's the landscape, here's what's going on inside. But money and what we do with it, I should say, being generous or being greedy, is like exercise or not exercise. It changes the shape of it.
Yeah.
So what we do with our resource isn't neutral for us. It's
Mm.
actually shaping us in one way or another. It's either helping us become more truly and wonderfully human as we were designed, or
Mm.
it's distorting us somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. It's a muscle to exercise. I
Oh,
remember I had an incredible opportunity to spend 48 hours in Amsterdam. It was like a layover, and we went into this restaurant. Our girls were 7 and 10. It was just phenomenal trip of a lifetime. And we had this one of those fixed price menus. That's all they had. I didn't know how nice this place was, but it's like middle of the afternoon. We're sitting outside, we're eating. They even customized the meal for the kids because they're like, well, you don't want to pay that much for your kids to have 7 courses. So here, we'll do some pad thai. And they customize it it was amazing. We had heard about the restaurant in a magazine. And so I'd seen a picture of the chef. I went inside to go to the bathroom and I'm like, oh, chef is doing spreadsheets at the bar. And so I just stopped and I said, hey, just want to say thank you so much. Like, incredible experience, great food. And he was like, oh, how about the kids? And I was like, well, you know what, chef? They tried everything. And he was like, taste is like a muscle. You just got to exercise it. So way to put that in front of them, way to have them try that. And Heath, we talk about that meal still. Like, we talk about that memory of being there, and it was the coconut gelato with the mango on the bottom and some red pepper flakes. We're like, what? Who would have thought that would have been good to even a kid? And I think generosity is the same way. It's that muscle that you exercise. You can build it up or you can atrophy, unfortunately. Yeah. And all it takes to build it up is to take that next step, which is, man, you think about your friends who are really generous and it's, yep, they're all super joyful. And like, it doesn't bother them to be like, yeah, hey, why don't you take this? Why don't you take that? I've got this neighbor across the street. I am borrowing every tool he has, every single one. And he's usually over within 3 minutes of me texting him to be like, hey, do you have a chop saw? And next thing I know, it's set up in my front yard. And I'm like, what? What? You didn't have to, you have kids? Like you, but that's just who he is. And he loves it. He came over this weekend and helped me hang boards. Those generous people, like, those are the ones I want to be around. So
yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah, man. All right. I love to close this way. Didn't prep you for this.
Oh, man.
Most of this, guys, is actually not prepped. So we've got a framework, but what is one thing that you'll share and then I'll share, or I can go first. It doesn't matter. What's one thing you're loving right now? So it's kind of end of the summer. This episode's going to come out probably in October. For anybody listening, Heath, I'm going to stretch to give you time to think. Heath's book, All Things Together. If you're on YouTube, I'm showing you the cover. It comes out October 14th. In fact, we're going to be giving away 2 copies of it. If you leave a review on Spotify or Apple, if you leave a review on one of those 2 places and I'll have to figure out a way that you can send your email to something. I'll figure out an email address. Then we will be giving away 2 copies to people who leave reviews. So just wanted to let you know about that free giveaway. So Heath, what is one thing that you're loving right now? It could be a person, it could be an activity, a memory, a product, a thing. What would it be?
Easily, it's Ruby. So we had a baby at the end of last year.
Yeah.
And she is such a joy. And to see my other kids love this little one and to want to hold her and want to feed her, and just first thing in the morning, where's Ruby? And they just want to go and they want to play. And to see my wife love her and care for her so well, it's just, Tim, it is the best. It just brings so much joy into our home. So sweet little Ruby is just quite literally the gem of the season, and we're so thankful for her. She's just a ton of fun.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah. I've heard you talk about her like that, and also like the full circle moment. We talked about being wonder blind earlier and how that has helped you guys become unwonder blind when it comes to life and humanity and joy. That's so cool, man.
Watching a human being's growth curve it's amazing how watching a baby put a blueberry in her mouth can just lead you to worship. Because, one day she's just ham-fisting it, can't figure out how to do it. And then the next day, the neurons are firing, and she goes like this, picks up the blueberry, puts it in her mouth, smiles, and realizes, I have acquired a new skill for life. And watching that process, you could just go, oh, that's cool. Or you could go, look at the incredible human nature on display and the beauty of this world and a baby eating a blueberry. Like, incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. This is great because I wanted to give listeners just a little sneak peek into not just your book, but like how you write. And this is a perfect segue. It's talking about a child, but it says, think of the colossal potential tightly curled up within that child while in their mother's belly or cradled in her arms. Imagine the wonders of humanity that are waiting to be released, unfurled, revealed, and reveled in as that child experiences the wild things of the world, steps forward into wider horizons of possibility, forms relationships, navigates suffering, and delights in the joys of being known. The child's experiences and memories deepen and widen like reaching roots, while their opportunities and outcomes expand and stretch upward like the branches of a great oak toward the light of the sun. Purpose, potential, and possibility all woven together in this small being, Ruby, who is and who is becoming. No wonder the literary genius Isaiah wrote of God's people, they will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor. So I just think that's it encapsulates not only what you're saying, but also how you say it, Heath. And I think that's the beauty of what people are going to get when they pre-order your book or order it right now on Amazon. So, dude, my thing that I'm loving right now, I got to confess, when I ask this question, I have this terrible, if you do something way up here, I do something way down here. And then I reverse it on people. They're like, oh yeah, I'm really liking this new polo that I bought at this fancy store. And I'm like, I love deep conversations over, and anyways. So we're going to have one of those today. I'm reorganizing my garage right now. And I have these battery-powered power tools, and I'm trying to figure out like how to hang them on the wall. And I got some hooks from Amazon. If you go on Etsy, there are people who also own the same products that you do, and they have 3D printed custom mounts so that it to the specifications of your tool mounts exactly on your wall. So it's flat. It's not like banging into the wall or anything. And they're like $9. It's crazy. They'll even match the color of your power tool with the mount. So anyways, that's one thing I'm loving right now, because it's just, oh my gosh, think of the human ingenuity of, you know what? I can probably draw that, sketch it, print it, and boom, done. Now I've got
That's
a mount.
amazing. You need to send me the link. I got tools everywhere. I need to put them up.
Gotta put them up. So, Heath, you're an amazing friend. Thank you so much just for your thoughtfulness. Thanks for just what you're putting into the world, the goodness and the truth, the beauty that you talked about. Like, it's evident. And I'm a recipient of that. I also know people who are listening who are going to be a recipient of that. And I'm just excited for those, even if it's one or two people who are like, wow, that really shifted my perspective on generosity, or that shifted my perspective on being human. People are going to get a ton out of it. So I know you're busy. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your wisdom. Just appreciate it so much.
Well, Tim, thank you. And when I think of glad-hearted, joyfully generous people, honestly, you're at the top of the list. I mean, you've been that way to me with your time and attention from day one, and you became a fast friend. So thank you for who you are. I appreciate you a great deal, Tim. And thanks for this opportunity.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you. Hey there. If this episode impacted you, would you share it with a friend right now? That would mean a lot to me. And even better, if you could leave a review of the show. Maybe mention what part of this conversation stuck with you. On the first Tuesday of each month, we're going to bring you some more stories of great leaders who have learned what it means to be truly wealthy. If you're watching on YouTube, we're going to drop that on the first Thursday of each month. So keep an eye on that. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.